So today we'll be going with digestive system. In the last class I told you, like when we were discussing about nutrition, there are the various types of food. The most common ones were carbohydrates and fats. So basically what happens is these carbohydrates and fats, they are further broken down into simpler substances which can be utilized in the body or either stored. So when we talk about digestive system, it always starts at the mouth and ends at the anus. So when we talk about the mouth, the first thing that comes to your mind is obviously the teeth. So when we talk about teeth, the teeth can be divided into two parts. The one which is exposed above the gum is called the crown. So basically when we talk about the crown, the outermost part is made up of enamel. It is the hardest substance of the body. Inside the enamel you get dentine, which is nothing but the pulp made up of pulp cavity, and then you get your nerve connections. Then the part of the teeth below the gum is the neck, in which you get the root and also the cement. Cement is the part which holds the teeth in the gum. So this is the structure of the tooth. So these portions is the root, cement, etc. So when we talk about teeth, there are basically four types of teeth. Incisors, which are at the front, is used for breaking and piercing of food. At the side you find your canines, which are slightly pointed, which is again used for piercing and tearing. And then if you move beyond the canines, you get your premolars and molars, which are slightly bigger as compared to the other teeth, and these are used for grinding purposes. So generally in the humans, teeth appears twice during its lifetime. The first set of teeth is called the milk teeth. They are basically removed by once the person reaches the age of 10 to 12 years. And this milk teeth are later replaced by permanent teeth. So teeth is an important component of the digestive system which helps to break down the food. Now when we talk about mouth itself, we have already discussed about teeth. The next thing is tongue. Tongue also helps in moving the food and also in speaking. So basically one of the most important functions when it comes to digestive is the function of taste. There are various types of taste buds like sweet, salty and sour, which is present on the tongue. Then next we move beyond the mouth. There are these three glands, parotid, mandibular and sublingual glands, which are called salivary glands. Salivary glands produce saliva, which helps in mixing the food properly. In addition to this, saliva also contains an enzyme called amylase. This amylase helps to digest starch. That means starch is broken down into simpler carbohydrates. So parotid gland is present below the ears, mandibular glands are present at the side of the jaws, sublingual glands are present just below the tongue. These three salivary glands produce saliva, which is important for producing the enzyme amylase, which helps in converting starch into simpler carbohydrates. So when we talk about mouth, we have already covered three main points. One, teeth, which helps in breaking down the food. Second, tongue, which helps in mixing the food and also determining the taste. And finally, the salivary glands, which produce saliva. Saliva produces an enzyme called salivary amylase. So once the food is broken down and chewed and mixed with saliva, the food moves from the mouth to the esophagus. In the esophagus, what happens is, there are two pipes. One is the food pipe and the other is the wind pipe. Wind pipe is covered by a protective tissue of flap called epiglottis, so that the food passes from the mouth directly into the food pipe. It does not enter the wind pipe because the wind pipe is protected by epiglottis. Now, as the food moves along the food pipe, it reaches the stomach. Now, how it reaches the food pipe is, the food in the mouth is converted into small rounded pieces called bolus. Actually, bolus is nothing but broken down food mixed with saliva. This bolus moves down the food pipe through the contractions of the stomach called peristalsis. So, from the food pipe, the mouth enters the stomach. Now, the stomach produces gastric juice, which contains hydrochloric acid in the enzymes pepsin, which helps in breaking down of proteins. Now, the gastric juice contains hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid, what it does is, it destroys the germs present in the food. The hydrochloric acid also makes the protein pepsin become active, so that the pepsin acts on proteins and breaks down into the components of proteins, which are nothing but amino acids. I already told you when we were discussing nutrition that amino acids combine to form polypeptides, polypeptides combine to form proteins. So, proteins is broken down into smaller components, either polypeptides or amines, with the help of enzyme pepsin. So, your pepsin is produced by the stomach as well as the gastric juice. From the stomach, the food enters the small intestine, but the opening of the stomach into the small intestine is guarded by sphincter muscles, and this opening is called the pylorus. Like this sphincter muscles, what it does is, it controls the opening and the closing of the stomach into the small intestine. That means it is not always open or always closed. Rather, these muscles act in opening and closing the stomach to the small intestine, so that when the food passes from the stomach to the small intestine, the food is not returned back from the small intestine to the stomach, because it is guarded by the sphincter muscles in the pylorus. Now, in the small intestines, the inner surface of the small intestine produce many finger-like projections called villi. These villi, what they does is, the broken down food which has been broken down in the stomach are absorbed and passed to the blood stream, from where it moves to the different parts of the body. So, these villi in the stomach, is in the small intestine, help in the absorption of food. So, now most of the digested food is absorbed through the villi. The unwanted, undigested food passes into the large intestine. In large intestine, what happens is, most of the water is reabsorbed and the remaining undigested food is excreted through the anus as feces. So, we will be continuing with this in the next class.